Alrighty, so I kind of thought that it would be helpful to kind of go through my pathway. I think a lot of people find it useful to hear different stories about how to pursue different careers, and mine is in some ways similar and in some ways different to the previous speakers. As Sanjana said, I grew up in Australia. And I grew up with my mom and my little sister, and this slide deck is just full of photos. I just wanted to kind of bring you into my world while we're chatting. So I grew up in Melbourne, Australia, which is where I am right now. I grew up right across the road from the beach, so I'm a huge kind of beach person. I'm not a great surfer, but I love being near the ocean. This is my city. And I just thought I'd give you a quick little tour if you've never been to Australia or really thought much about what it looks like, or if you have some misconceptions about it being totally outback and full of kangaroos. It's a pretty normal place. We have trams like you might find in San Francisco, and some parts of the city are old and some parts are new. And this is me when I was in high school. I was the blonde one, second from the right there, and I went to a Catholic all-girls school. This is my graduating class. And I bring this up particularly in the context of physics, because when I was in high school, I had this pretty strong idea that I was really, really interested in space. I wanted to be an astronaut. I've heard that sentiment in the other two speakers. And I started taking physics courses because I was pretty strong in math and really enjoyed it. But at an all-girls school with this many people in my class, I think it was like 100 people in my graduating class, so pretty small, there wasn't a single other girl in my whole class that wanted to take physics. So at the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade levels, there was nobody in my school but me that wanted to take physics. And so I had to start going across the road to the all boys school just to keep studying the topic I was interested in, because there weren't many people. I was the only one at my school. So kind of from early on, even though I knew I loved space, I was in a place where it actually just wasn't very accessible at all. And kind of since then, I've been really engaged in getting students excited about physics and overcoming any intimidation they feel about it being difficult, and just giving it a go, because I think it's really fascinating and cool when you can work through equations and start understanding the way the world works. So as I said, I was the only one, but I was pretty determined. I'm a competitive person, but I'm also a pretty goal-oriented person. And I had this goal of being an astronaut. So when I was in high school, I went to a talk by this astronaut Rex Walheim. And Rex, he has gone to the space station twice, and he basically was just kind of on a speaking tour around my city. And I kind of admittedly snuck out of high school one afternoon and just went to his talk in the city that afternoon. I just got on a train and really wanted to go meet him. And I'm a bit of an emotional person, so I got up and I met him, and I was like so excited that I started crying, which thank God it's not on the photo, but maybe you can see I'm a little bit emotional. I was so excited because in Australia, we don't have a space program. So it felt extremely far away. Oh, sorry, my email's going crazy. Ugh, I don't know how to stop this. This is really annoying. I can't see. Space, like there was no astronaut program, so it felt kind of impossible to become an astronaut until I met this guy. And so I asked him at that time, what do you need to go to space? Like, what do you have to do? What are the steps? And I guess I could have looked it up online, but at that time I just wanted to talk to this person, and the advice he gave me was really, really important. He said, you have to figure out what you enjoy, because in order to be an astronaut, you need to be the best in the world at whatever it is that you're doing. And that should be in sciences or in engineering. And different missions will favor different skill sets. But at the end of the day, you just have to be really, really excellent at it. So figure out what you love doing day in and day out, and then find a place where you can go and spend a lot of time doing that. And he said, if you go to one of the top schools, that's definitely going to push you on your way. It's not necessary, but try and pick the school that's also top in the thing that you love doing the most. And so he kind of threw out like Harvard, MIT, but said, like figure out what you want to do and where that's going to be best channeled. And so I'd kind of gotten into space documentaries and things, and I really, really loved cosmology and the origins of the universe, and how, you know, questions around how black holes work, and all these big questions about how big space is, do aliens exist, all the kind of things you'd be curious about if you're thinking about space. So I looked up different research departments at schools, and I found that Harvard had a really, really fantastic astrophysics program. So that was kind of my dream school, and that's where I set my sights in high school. Didn't go to a high school that had any college guidance counselors, because no one at my school had ever gone to US universities before. So I kind of went through the whole college apps process completely on my own. But I don't have a photo, unfortunately, but I was really, really lucky in high school as well, that I reached out to somebody that was a family friend. He was a professor in biology, and at the local university, and I said that I really wanted to study astrophysics. And so he said, okay, well, here are the names of 3 different professors that I know in astrophysics at universities in Australia. Why don't you check out their research and see you know, if any of them kind of piques your interest. And one of them really did. His name was Brian Schmidt. He was at Australian National University, which is in a different state than where I live. It's about 10 hours drive or 2 hours flight away. And he was studying cosmology and origins of the universe, and the, you know, the way that space-time grows and changes over time. And so I reached out to him, and he agreed to have me kind of shadow him and be an intern in my senior year in September. And we had Australia's on the opposite hemisphere, so we have a different different school year to you. Our school year is aligned with the calendar year. It goes from January to December, and we have a 2-week break in September. So in September, I drove up with my mum and my sister these 10 hours to this other university to go intern with this professor for 2 weeks. And I got there, I did a day of like attending his lectures with his students and learning a bit about physics. And then the next day I got into the office. He had just received a call from the Nobel Prize Committee saying that he had won the Nobel Prize in physics. So I spent the rest of the 2 weeks there that I was interning as a high school student, going from party to party, kind of on the arm of this newly awarded Nobel physicist, and just got to see basically what physics looks like at its absolute peak of achievement, which was a huge highlight and something I didn't really deserve to be involved in at that young. I was really, really just lucky to be at the right place at the right time. But that kind of propelled my love of physics forward, and got me really excited about the pursuit of knowledge in the domain of physics. So the other thing about Australia being in the Southern Hemisphere is that because our calendar year and our academic year is lined up, when you apply to US colleges, say like 31st of December, you actually don't start college until August. But I finished high school by the time I applied to college. So I had from 31st of December till college started, basically just waiting with no school, nothing else to do. So another idea I got from this astronaut Rex was to build some skills that astronauts needed to kind of get ahead of the game. He said that learning Russian or Chinese would be really helpful. And he also said that kind of getting scuba diving licenses or pilot's licenses would also be helpful. So I spent those 6 months between high school and college, getting my pilot's license. And this might sound like cool or normal to you, or it might sound like totally crazy and super expensive and super ridiculous to some of you. And so I want to explain how I did this, because I am not rich at all. We actually lived on welfare. My mom was a single parent. We had very, very low income. And I guess on the one hand, maybe it was a little bit like reckless that I was spending a lot of money on flying, but it was something I was really, really determined about. So I basically would take public transport, or actually rollerblade to the flying school every day, which was about an hour rollerblade, but that was like my daily exercise. I got really into it for some reason. And then I would work 8 hours as a receptionist at the flying school. And at the end of the school, like at the end of the day, I would get 1 hour lesson for all the hours that I just worked. So that's kind of how expensive it was. But I did that every single day for 6 months. And I got my recreational pilot's license by the end of that time. And I really like kind of being in the sky. And I just thought I'd show you a couple of pics of what it looks like in these tiny planes, or what it looks like when you're up in the sky. And then we had this, I don't know how they found out about me, but some journalist in my area took some like promo pics and put a thing in the newspaper about me getting my pilot's license and getting into Harvard and all these things. So that's what this photo's from. So in August, I did end up moving to the US. I got into Harvard, and on my way through, I emailed Rex, again, that astronaut I met up with. So if you see this guy here is the same as this guy on the left here. And he basically said, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. I don't think he expected me to follow up, but he basically invited me to go visit him in Houston at NASA, and then took me on a tour of the whole facility. We had lunch together. And I've since caught up with him a couple of times and met a bunch of his astronaut friends, which has been really, really cool. So that was just a fun tidbit on the way that was the first time I'd ever been to the US. And then I moved into my dorm at Harvard. So I thought I'd give you a quick tour of what my kind of campus experience was like. Summer and winter, same place. This was my freshman year building, which was really beautiful. This is the yard again in winter. This is my sister when I first moved into my dorm, and we kind of decorated it cute, and we had a lot of friends over, and it was a really, really fun experience. This is my dining hall in freshman year, which looks like Hogwarts. And a couple of my friends, our Harvard waffles that we had, which was super, super ridiculous. And this is where I lived the like other 3 years when I was in college, in Dunster House, which was super beautiful. That's our dining hall there. A couple of other experiences. I did rowing. I walked onto the crew team, which was a mistake. It was really, really hard. And now physics. So I declared my major as astrophysics when I got to college. And that was awesome. Most of my lectures looked like this. We spent a lot of time doing group work in dining halls late at night, often until like 4 a.m. on a Wednesday night before our homework was due on Thursday morning. In our freshman year, our physics class, we chose, me and these friends chose Physics 16, which was like the hardest physics class. And it was really, really difficult. Maybe to excess. I don't think it needed to be that hard, but the professor had fun kind of trying to challenge us as much as he could. This is another picture of us, like every single person in this dining hall was in my physics class, and this is probably taken at like 2 a.m. on a Wednesday night when we're all just like going crazy over these like ridiculous problem sets. And this is one of my professors trying to explain one of my problem sets to me for like 3 hours at some point. I don't even, to be honest, remember what those symbols mean at this point. Maybe somebody else does. It's all like angular momentum, but I don't remember what the context was. And then as part of the astronomy department, we also got to go on a huge number of trips. So we got to do all this observing of different, like using different telescopes to observe different places in space, which was really, really incredible. And if any of you are familiar with NAS Daily on Facebook or any other platforms, you might be able to see right in the middle here. One of the guys there is NAS. He's like he just hit like 25 million followers or something. I don't know, but he's put out all these travel videos, and he was in this cohort with me as well. Here's a couple more pics of being at telescope places that are beautiful. We always sleep on the mountains. And I also threw in there that I got my scuba diving license, because that's something else Rex had mentioned. So my best friend and I in college went and did some scuba diving on the Great Barrier Reef at one point during college. Now for research. This picture is anyone familiar with this picture? This is a picture of a black hole that was taken by a research group out of Harvard and MIT, and it's the first ever picture of a black hole. And I don't take any credit for this whatsoever, but my first research experience at Harvard was working on the team that ultimately did take this picture. And it's a huge success. It's the first time ever that a black hole has been imaged, and this looks like maybe a crappy or low resolution image, but this black hole that they've taken a photo of, that kind of black dot in the middle of all that plasma looking stuff, is a very, very long way away. So someone said it's something equivalent to being in California and taking a photo of a penny in New York City, like that far away for that small. And it might even be more extreme than that, but that's kind of the scale we're talking about, to give you some sense. So that was my first taste of research. That was very, very math heavy, working in the kind of black hole department area. But what I got really excited about was asteroids. And I ended up doing a TED talk in my senior year of college about how we can mine asteroids for precious minerals. And the reason we would want to do that is to start an economy in space. If there are things in space that people on Earth can make use of as resources, then we can hopefully start the process of getting people to space more and more to go collect those resources. So I was pretty obsessed with the idea of just getting tons and tons of people to space, because I'd heard from so many astronauts that when you go to space, you experience this thing called the overview effect. And the overview effect is where you look down at Earth and you see Earth as very small and precious and to be looked after, and you see you see kind of Earth versus space, rather than country versus country, or this person versus that person. And so astronauts have said when they look down at Earth, they experience this feeling of all divisions between people dissolving, and that being a really beautiful thing. And I wanted lots of people to have that experience. So I was pretty obsessed with the idea of how do we make space accessible to other people. And I thought that creating an economy in space would be the way to do that. And in our question session, you can ask me more about how we can do that with asteroids. But I have a TED talk on YouTube that you can also check out about that. Yeah, this is my talk. And then after that, I went to Stanford. As Sanjana said, I switched into aerospace engineering, and I was pretty interested in learning more about engineering so I could figure out how to keep working on this problem of creating a space economy and doing mining in space. And I did a 2-year master's degree there. There's a couple of my lecture hall experiences. This is one of my teams. We were making autonomous flying, like kind of paper plane looking things. It was a lot of fun. I did a lot of AI and machine learning kind of work at that time as well. This is my all the girls in my graduating class. My master's degree was 100 people, and this is how many girls there were in my aerospace master's. So again, it was pretty small on the girls and pretty big on the boys, but definitely a lot better than my high school experience. And it's another graduation picture. And one other thing is that I was working, as Sanjana mentioned, at this company making small satellites. So while I was doing my master's degree, I was kind of getting some industry experience working for a startup that makes this satellite, which is now in space. And this is like the closest I've ever come to space so far. I've written my name on the inside of a bunch of these satellites. So I have a bunch of things in space that have my like signature on it at this point, but I haven't come closer to getting there myself just yet. I'm also part of a bunch of cohorts of kind of young entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, these different groups that I've been part of. And I've kind of gone off into the track of business. And at this point, I'm focusing a lot on education. So I visited 50 different schools around the US and tried to figure out what was going on, how to get people more excited about education, especially about STEM education. And again, as Sanjay mentioned, I've been working on this app called Guided for just over a year and a bit now, trying to help unlock students' potential and get them engaged and help them feel like they know how to pursue different career paths and that they feel guided through that process. So that's what I've been working on. And if you're interested in following along, I'll show you the link to our Instagram for now, which is where you can follow us. This road trip, by the way, when I went to all these schools, I brought my dog, so I thought I'd add a few cute photos of him being goofy. He doesn't like the water very much. But yeah, this is the app we're working on. This is just our Instagram handle where we're trying to kind of collect followers at this point before we launch the app. And that's where we'll announce that it's live if you're interested in that. Okay, that's what I had to say. I'm happy to take questions in the Q&A session, and I hope this was interesting and helpful for you guys.